Board of Trustees, we have Roberto, Lisa, Ann, and Nathan. So we have a good full group here.
Sounds good.
Okay, we're live and recording.
Roberto.
Okay, so if everyone just go around the room, Roberto, we'll start with you as chair.
Quinones.
Jonathan Martin.
Lisa Carter. Ann Burnett.
Nathan Sanford.
Joe Kuiper.
Mary Zogdalen.
Brian Harbour.
Okay, I think we're official. We'll get the meeting started finally. All right, so Roberto, you are chair.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate your time and efforts and activities for the board. Hopefully down the road we can get some other folks, and even if they're not official committee members, to join us and share their thoughts and knowledge with us. As per usual, our staff will be guiding us through the numbers and the topics, and please feel free to jump in when we can. I guess, Jonathan, are you leading us off?
Absolutely. I can totally handle that. We were, well, as you guys know from the previous meeting, it looked like we were going to be fully funded. And then we made our budget adjustments just this last, I think Thursday, the 23rd, submitted those to DEB. So that covered the increase in the wages. So remember last year, the legislature voted on 5% increase. So that is being covered by the state. It hasn't shown up on our books yet, so I don't like to count it until I see it. There's a bit of an offset with some employees leaving as far as health insurance. And so what they give us and what they take, I think the net is going to be an additional $66,000 to the bottom line, which you guys will see under appropriations and central account distributions. That's positive. Looking at our numbers so far, Christy in education has done a great job working with the city and county. We've received all the funds this year already, which is really exciting. Only 2 months in, and then I think there's going to be a record in the Virginia publications. Some good news there. So Chesapeake Bay, which we'll probably speak to this later. So they took what was the book off our hands?
So we printed a book in 1995 called Preserving the Chesapeake Bay, written by former Governor Belial. And so we had several copies, some that sold over the years, but they were from 1995. We had about 50 copies left over. So long story short, Longwood University has a nature preserve that was they recently received a large donation in memory of Governor Belial. So as part of that, we're going to attend the event, take the books up there, give them out to the attendees, but Longwood bought the books as part of the unveiling. So it was about $1,000.
Yeah, so that'll make for a good year this year.
Yeah.
In publications. Everything else is kind of right in line. We will be doing the festivals this year, so you guys should see our admissions pick up dramatically over last year. Again, we didn't change the budget last year to reflect COVID, and this year, we left the same marks in place that we're trying to reach for. You guys can tell, you'll see salaries went up, all benefits went up accordingly. And you're looking through facilities, we'll see a change in that. And I think later on in the agenda, we'll talk about the ESCO project with the strategic planning. We'll see that number start to slide down as we implement that. And just remember, the fiscal year, you guys know, starts in July, so we'll get about a half a year of savings once we get everything in place on that front. Really, I'm here too just for any questions that anybody has about budget items or when we receive funds or when, it's kind of funny to get the distributions later in the fiscal year after you already started, but it's just how they.
That was going to be one of my questions, is when does the money actually come over from the state?
Oh, well, we should have gotten it already. Last year we would have gotten it already, so it's just taking longer than normal. So I'd say going into December, they try to get by December, right? Because they want you to have it for at least half the year. But we don't really, we're not going to pay it out until things won't get tight until the last couple of months if they don't.
So is it like cash is fine because you have
Mhm.
it's not like you need that to hit on the first day of the fiscal year.
Right. That's like the last 5% that we'll need. So it's, I mean, they essentially can give it to us whenever, but this is the latest we've ever received it since I've been on.
I was also curious because it looks like you realized most of your revenues and then only sort of the correct proportional amount of operating expense. Does that put the museum in a position where it is flush with cash if you do something with those funds to generate revenue beyond what's on the sheet? Like, because is there a lag between you getting the money and then having to go out and expense it?
Yeah, so that just happens every year.
Sure.
So we kind of front load it, especially Christie and education,
Store
store
sales,
Yeah, so
insurance,
yeah.
things like that.
If we think of the red, yellow, green, like kind of things, it doesn't sound like there's anything in a potential red, any potential yellows
No,
that you're seeing at all, or?
no, I mean, the only thing really changed this year over last year was the subscriptions. We increased the amount in that bucket in the accounting software, not the state accounting. That was in the red last year, but obviously we got the $12,500 from the state to pay for COVID-related items, and that's where that went. So this year, it was budgeted for, and it'll show positive throughout the year. So that's really what they look for, is as your accounts balance, as you're doing your homework. So.
Yeah.
And just real quick, I probably should know this. What are contractual services? What line item?
That can be anything from the work done on the elevator to the fire alarm,
Okay.
fire system. That's just a recurring quarterly. But also, if we contract somebody to do the work on the elevator, that'll go in that bucket as well.
Or what about the calendar, proposed budget? The board needs to begin to consider that, so we will have a draft budget for them, which honestly, it doesn't really look too different from year to year.
Yeah.
But we will present at the February meeting the draft budget for the full board, so we'll of course circulate that amongst this group, and then the board will vote on approving the proposed fiscal year budget at the May meeting. That's been our
And I get the,
standard.
that'll have the appropriation, and the account change for the salaries and stuff, so more accurately depicts the fiscal year.
I'll just say it's been going along very smooth so far. So, okay, I have said this before, I can't believe we're in as good a position as we are right now compared to what things looked like a year and a half ago, so it's surprising, but we don't take it for granted.
Yeah. And that's why I asked the question on the stoplights, just,
Right.
Just anything to keep an eye on, just let us know. Boards hate surprises, so just
Yes.
don't give them any surprises. Great. Brian, looks like you're up.
Thank you. So I think Earl's on the phone as well. So Earl, please correct me if I'm wrong or add anything that I missed.
Will do,
You've all
thank
got a copy. Thanks, Earl. As far as the advancement report, it does cover the last full quarter, so it's March through June this year, but it was fiscal year 2021. So we will start working on the next quarter, which ends Thursday this week. So that could be July, August, and September. But I will say, even though the quarter's not finished, it has started really strong, and so we're seeing a lot of the same momentum that we saw at the end of the last fiscal year, as far as overall revenue, both on the foundation side and the museum. So just really quickly, I just want to highlight a few things. Going back to last fiscal year, we did end up really strong on the foundation side. So overall revenue for fiscal year 21, which was most of the pandemic, was actually up over the previous fiscal year. So we were at 222, 389 past year versus 131 total the previous year. That's a variety of funding sources, so that's grants, corporate partnerships, memberships, all these different things. generally what we see is as some things fluctuate, other things pick up. So over the past year, we had strong grants, corporate partnerships, curator-driven grants, things like that. As far as currently and going forward, we have a current membership drive. So we are specifically reaching out to lapsed members. So these are members that were folks who were members maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, going back to, I think, 4 years ago that we're targeting. So we're reaching out to let them know, hey, you know, your membership is lapsed, but here's what we have coming up. And it's really helpful, kind of the reopening, obviously it's sporadic. But as we go back to festivals, new exhibits, all the different programs that we have, that's the message. Now it's time to rejoin. And so 1 month into that campaign, we're doing really well. So, for example, last year, during the first month, we had 8 memberships. We're over 100 at this point, just for that same time period. And even pre-pandemic, we're well over, we were at 25, 19 versus, you know, over 100 now. So these are folks that used to be members, they're becoming members again. The next step is going to be targeting new members, so via social media, other outreach. And then also our Discovery Fund, that's our annual fund. We're going to have a large outreach campaign starting next month. So it's coming up pretty quickly in a couple of weeks. That's a variety of mail solicitations, but also social media, direct email, things like that. So that's generally our fall Discovery Fund push. As far as corporate partnerships, I just want to highlight a few. I think they're really exciting. We recently received $20,000 from the Patterson Foundation, and that is specifically for what we're calling our Science Outreach Initiative. So that's festival, exhibit, programming, all packaged under the bigger umbrella of science outreach. So the reason we're doing these things, obviously, it, you know, generates interest, generates revenue, but it hits the overall goal of science outreach throughout the state and beyond. Also just received word that we got $10,000 from the Monogram Love Kids Foundation. The Monogram Foods is a large local company in Martinsville. We've talked with them in the past. We've kind of gone back and forth. But for the first time, they provided support for virtual and in-person education programs. That's really exciting. So we'll get that check soon. And what we've built into these proposals recently is flexibility. So we work with the educators, with the schools to figure out, you know, if it can be in-person, virtual, hybrid, knowing that things are kind of flexible at this point. Exciting there as well. Yeah, and that's kind of the overall revenue. On the museum side, we are seeing an uptick, continued growth, both in visitation, admissions revenue, and store revenue. So along with that, zip code distribution is great. So we're seeing over 70% of our visitors coming from outside the local area.
Looks like you had a spike in April. Is that when we were allowed to get more folks in, or is that maybe residual effect when people get vaccinated? In theories there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It might have been a little early for vaccinations because I hung around to get the leftovers, so I got mine pretty early, you know, which was March. So I think people were still the vast majority of people were still fired.
So I think part of it was it was right around that time we started adding days of operation.
That's okay then.
So we were, I forget the exact dates, but we were open for 1 day a week for a long time, and it was 2 days, and then it was 5 days a week. So that was kind of the initial spike from the added. Starting July 1st, we did go to 5 days a week. So we're seeing pretty strong steady visitation. Saturdays, like always, are our busiest days. But pretty much throughout the week, we're seeing.
But the interesting kind of residual that came from this is forever we were open Monday through Saturday, except during the summers we'd also be open for partial hours on Sunday. We now are open at this time. During the summer we were open Tuesday through Sunday. We now, during the school year, dropped Sundays because we just don't get people, you know, so it's just worth opening. But not being open to the public Monday has not really hurt visitation because it historically has just been a dog, you know, we just don't get people through the gate. But having that day with it being open to staff, but being closed to the public, maintenance and even getting things squared up for education programs, exhibit maintenance and so forth, has has all been greatly enhanced. So we didn't mean for that to happen, really. That wasn't the goal of it to begin with, but it was Ryan and his team talking about hours of operation, and it's been a definite benefit to our day-to-day.
Yeah. I think we're kind of maximizing, and it's like, it used to be 5 o'clock we closed, now it's 4 o'clock. What we always saw was just to really trickle people after 4 o'clock. So it's really, saving that hour of operation, having everything, not really affected the revenue, but
And it's a lot of fun if someone comes in at 3 o'clock and wants to stay after 4, that we can actually get good security training going. And we, no, I'm kidding. People are allowed to stay all the way till 5 o'clock. So, but we just close the box off at that point.
as far as projects, so the foundation regularly supports mission-based projects. Normally what we do is we have special projects identified throughout the fiscal year, predetermined. What we did this year, in light of COVID and just wanting to have that flexibility, was we did not predetermine special projects. So what we're going to do is work with the trustees, work with the foundation board to just be flexible and as opportunities come up, knowing those funds are available. As far as endowment.
Ryan, can we step back to that? I hope I'm not jumping the gun here, but usually the foundation is starting to put the budget for the upcoming fiscal year together in February. So one thing that we'll need to do, and I think we should do as kind of a joint collaboration between the staff and the board and with input from the foundation, is start to come up with these special projects. So in the past, we had about maybe $25,000 to work with, something on that level, in which the foundation has provided some unrestricted cash to each of the curators for supplies and so forth. They've funded volunteer benefits, such as field trips and so forth. There's a whole litany of them that I'm just unprepared with right now. But a big one, which was an additional pot of money, was the big, well, you haven't visited yet, Ann, but we have a big scary dinosaur in the middle of the Hall of Ancient Life, and that's our Acrocanthosaurus. We actually bought that on a payment plan from the North Carolina Museum of Nature and Science, so they cut us a good deal, and they allowed us to do payments over maybe 6 years or something. So we have an additional about $12,000 or $13,000 that we can add into the special projects request. So I'd like people to start thinking about what that looks like. We were brainstorming a bit in the car, but that's just a staff. So that's something that can go to the full board. Maybe should be a discussion point in the foundation board and whatnot. So it's an opportunity. I think we should take advantage of doing this collaboratively.
Tag along question it sounded like there's different things over different times, but is there like a swag number that we give them every year just so that they can know what neighborhood we're?
So, yeah.
Like if I grass it, what's the trend rate? Is there a kind of a solid trend rate on how much we?
Yeah, but now the foundation will have more flexible money. In the end, they will decide how it's to be used. But we could also keep in mind that you as a board and we as staff can make a wish list of things to be funded. So one thing we talked about was how do we make our dinosaur exhibits more engaging, so you can do something with them as opposed to just do a 360 and read a sign. And we've seen this in other museums where you have some version of you touch a button that gives you further information about a feature of the skeleton, such as the pathologies. So our Allosaurus, for instance, walked around with arthritis. We can tell that based upon the evidence in the bones, right? And so you can in one museum I saw, you touch a button, that part of the skeleton gets lit up, and then you get some extra information. But here in the day of heads-up displays and other technological advances, it might be nice to work with an exhibit firm to manufacture something to make it something that people can definitely engage more with, as opposed to the passive absorption of information. So that's just one example of what we're thinking of. But keep the ideas coming. We have time. So we should have something together for the foundation in, say, early 2022.
Yeah, and I will say, speaking on behalf of Earl, I think the foundation board always welcomes ideas and whatever ideas we come up with. I think we'll make it happen. As far as the endowment, Earl, feel free to jump in here as well. But we've seen strong growth. So on the advancement report, you basically see a snapshot as of June 30th, the balance was 752,000, almost 753. And the same time the previous year, June 30th was 618. So we saw about a 22% increase in endowment growth over that year. It's a combination of new gifts, but also growth. Over the last year, primarily growth versus new gifts. Although we do have a few estates that we're working on with different individuals. It takes a while. We don't know the exact amount yet, but there's another one coming up. So probably in the $100,000 range.
Is that fund managed in-house?
So, yeah, so it's managed by Steeple. It's a local firm, but they have, I think they're more of a national.
The guy handling our money actually is a past VMNH foundation board member, so he's committed to the museum and success.
Yeah, it's a great relationship. I think very open book. Gary's always, willing to answer questions. Comes to meetings regularly. Yeah, I think foundation board's on top of it as well. I think they've got the just the last item here as far as Grace and Grains. Normally it's a spring event. We did not hold it in 2020. In 2021, we did a sort of an online and virtual format, more of a spring fund drive. We did make some funds on that. But what we're looking at now is April 2022 to go back to some form of in-person format, whatever that might be. So we don't have the exact date yet, but we are looking at April 2022. Pretty standard. What's been in the past is a pretty standard gala format. We get a caterer. We have some live music, silent auction, things like that. It's very nice. I mean, it makes some money, but it's also a friend raiser. So obviously we want to make money on it, but it's also a chance to connect with donors and community leaders and whoever else.
Actually, I would think in the region, it's kind of one of the top three, kind of go-to places for people. They look forward to it every year. I'd say that and the hairball and the SBCA fundraiser. Right, that's a good one. And there's one or two others, but anyway, people really look forward to it.
It's going to be in person again.
That's the plan. That's what we're planning for at this point. Obviously, we'll be flexible with public.
The trend line looks pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean,
this morning was probably.
oh, I missed it. So
They're just saying the numbers.
yeah.
Oh, good.
Our trouble, of course, is even though I think I read that Virginia is at 83 or 87% of all eligible people are vaccinated, which is really good. But Martinsville, Henry County, and the surrounding counties are 40 to 50%.
Yeah. Closer to 40, yeah.
You get high percentages in the big population
Yeah.
centers and then everything.
Yeah, I think Martinsville City's at 52, but the county's like 40, 41.
That's pretty much standard in the county.
Yeah. Just something we need to keep our finger pulse up.
So yeah, definitely more to come on that. We're probably going to just go ahead and make some commitments on that. As far as booking a caterer.
Oh, that's a good point. May as well start getting the message out there. One of the things that we do that's actually fairly successful is we get board members and others in the community to donate auction items. We do a silent auction. It's not a huge labor situation for us, which makes it beneficial. The problem is, I mean, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to look the gift horse in the mouth and whatnot. And we do get some big items that do move. So we get some beautiful pieces of furniture. In the past, we put, trips down. We didn't make any money on it, but, it was still exciting for whoever bid on it. They got a $1,000 trip to wherever it was. But the things that move are things that are like in the $50 to $100 range. So moving more smaller things works better for us than having too many big things. Because then Jonathan's office just gets full of stuff, for the next year until the next Grapes and Grains.
It'll make it out.
Yeah, like sitting all of the ottomans, like, I wish somebody would bid on this thing.
Okay, cool.
It'd be good if the call for those items went out early so that somebody could bring them down from Richmond on a trip, even if it's way far in advance of Grapes and Grains, if they're not gonna make it to Grapes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Experiences go real well too. So I always give away a couple of field trips, and they get snatched right up every time. And other curators have put out field trips. I forget what else, Ryan. There's things like Spa Day and
Yeah, and some folks can give away, tickets to Virginia Tech games.
yes, people seem to like that as well, in addition to more affordable things.
You're reminding me, I know at one of the committee meetings, we talked about the dinosaur dig. I don't know when that whenever that gets back to the place where we can offer more public.
I think we're good. I talked to Adam about it recently, and you know, he says he's all for it. You know, he's going to roll with it.
At the what meeting is it? The collections and
Probably research and collection.
research and collections. A couple of the board members were saying, you should offer, some of these up to the big donors as a potential revenue generator in terms of having folks that might want to go to this dig they do in Wyoming every year. And then it's, but then you really got to be good because you're asking people to pay for it as opposed to just showing up. So it's that balance of but, along those lines, that could give it an extra boost if you're also announcing it at that event.
Yes.
Awareness thing, so.
Agreed.
Another thing too, and maybe you do this and I just don't know, but is the auction part available to people that aren't there? Because I'm wild about the auctions, but I never make the event. I could totally bid on stuff for my sofa while you guys are in Martinsville.
So we tried it a few years ago, but we didn't really have the format. I think we're better prepared now.
New website.
Yeah, so that's something that we talked about.
And I'm willing to do it, but I think we also ought to get some help. I think I'm asking too much of, like Ryan and Zach to run silent auction while we're planting grapes and grains and then the 500 other things they have to do. But, so for something like that, if we can find someone with experience, because that, I would imagine, except for us getting them photos of the items and whatnot, they don't need to be local.
No.
It's something they can run.
Well, though I was going to say where you might want to engage, and you can have, I've seen the silent auctions with other boards I've served on, is to have a local auction house. So, like in Richmond, I think of Martin Motley's auction. He's got everything already kind of built in. So he can do the online, he's got the staff that know how to run it. I am sure there are people that run, it doesn't have to be somebody who runs, furniture. It could be somebody who auctions property.
I get the feeling, I've been off a lot, I get the feeling Motley charges for that though.
Well, yes, but the thing is,
You make more money.
well, I'm just saying,
There could be an ask.
will you donate your time?
Yeah, whoever were to do that, if we go that route, this will not be the biggest project of our lives, to say the least.
Right.
But if you could get outside people who aren't necessarily there to bid, it might be worth it.
Yes, exactly.
Even if it does cost something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's people that do it like constantly. There's every Saturday morning I get some house that I made the mistake of bidding on some cassette recorder once, and now every Saturday morning I get a text about some auction closing. So there's plenty of platforms out there. So let me ask a clarifying question here. Is this our party or is this the foundation's party? Whose party is it?
So it's a foundation event, a fundraising event, and part of that is just getting all the alphabet, if you like. But it's put on to support the museum, the mission-based grant that we do. Foundation event.
I'm just digesting Joe's comment about who's doing what and where the tasks are distributed in terms of.
We have to do a lot because, of course, the foundation pays for half of the salary, and Charlotte does a really good job. But
So part of our ask would be to try to find some more volunteers to kind of do some more of the lifting so that less staff time is.
Yeah.
We can talk. I can make some calls on that.
Thank you, Roberto.
I will say, Roberto, at different points, we have had different levels of committee foundation committee involvement. So in the past, or you probably remember there was some specific gala committee set up, and different folks have different levels of involvement. Some don't really want to be involved; it's not really their thing. But some really, they're on the big settings, things like that.
Yeah, I'm just still digesting like where the line, like who does what line. So I know I'm not overstepping my requests and questions. So that's why I asked.
Earl, did I leave anything major out?
Ryan, I think you covered it all really well. Nothing to add here.
Thanks, Earl.
And thank you.
So, getting the word out.
Yeah, so kind of, we've covered some of this. I did email out the numbers sort of quarter to date. We're well over where we were last year, but of course last year was the sort of the dark days of the pandemic. So we're not yet at where we were pre-pandemic, but we're much closer now than we were, if that makes sense. So, we're, over 300% of visitation compared to this time last year for the quarter so far. And I think more exciting is the revenue. So our revenue per visitor is up significantly over pre-pandemic levels. So we're seeing folks spend money in the store. Part of it is, so we're not getting school groups and other groups that they pay money, but it doesn't go into admission. They may draw the average down a little bit. But that being said, I think what we're seeing is, store sales per visitor, overall admissions is up significantly. We're making money, reaching audiences. Zip codes, like I said, are really strong. And I think we're seeing it continue. I think summers are always the strongest. So July, whether we have a festival or not, or, summer travelers, continuing. I will say too, the last thing is Groupon sales. So if you're familiar with Groupon, you can buy different experiences, different packages. So we have it's a really basic, you can buy tickets for 2 or tickets for 4. They come with a $10 gift card to the store. And we're seeing those really strong. That's really picking back up. It really just dropped off to nothing during the pandemic, but it's really picking up again. And so traditionally what we see is before a big festival, the Groupon sales would spike. People would buy them up because it's a really good deal and they'd use them at festival. So we're seeing those levels now. Now, whether that means they're all going to show up at Dragon Festival, we'll see. But the fact is, once they buy them, there's no refunds, so we get the money. They can use them, next month, next year. They're at the year limit. All good signs.
That $10 probably more what's that actually.
Exactly. Because it's if you spend, $9.90, you don't get 10 cents short, so they generally spend. Yeah, all good signs. But like I said, we're being realistic, cautious, but ambitious.
Back to our prior meeting, that's just making me think about, there could be a book package. You get the book.
So speaking of Dragon Festival, the staff are really nervous, right? Because, for them, if you're not breaking a record while running a festival, there's something gone wrong, terribly wrong. So I tried to convince them all that just putting on a big event where we have put COVID restrictions in place, as long as we put the event on and offer a great experience for people, that's our measure of success this time, right? We'll get back to numbers as we ramp up some momentum, but the response has been pretty good. There's been a lot of social media presence, similar to what we saw at our last one, which was the biggest one we ever threw in 2019. So, and of course, there's some negative comments. We've been called communists, COVID worshipers, sheeple, and whatever. Fine. We really don't care. So,
Common internet stuff.
oh yeah, whatever. It's water off a duck.
Cool, that's the first time I've heard that one.
Yeah, well, I hadn't heard that one either.
Yeah, no, just we're following the
people who live just the fun shops on Facebook.
Oh yeah. So, and anyway, it's all good. We did lose a couple of vendors once they saw the restrictions go in place. They said, "Well, we're not doing business with you," and it's fine, right?
Really?
So, yeah. So they can go try to find ways to make money elsewhere, as far as I'm concerned.
And go to all the pro-COVID festivals.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and it's not kidding around. Danville just hosted that Blue Ridge Music Festival, which was kind of a heavy metal concert. 33,000 people. And now they're already now tracking COVID cases that originated, and apparently people went to that knowing they were sick, right? And so I think that unto itself is justification enough to be like, nah, you give us your card, you know, get a test or a jab.
What's your estate agent, you know? Just the look of it, too.
Oh God, yeah. Especially being a science museum. Right. Let's just ignore it. So, anyway.
Ignore science.
So we're good. We know we're going to make money, and it's great that we got the backing of the Patterson Foundation and some corporate partners have been very generous. So, so we're going to be in the black. Are we going to make as much money as we did in 18 and 19? Maybe, maybe not. But we still feel pretty good about where we're at.
Yeah,
We may get new people.
Yeah, guaranteed. Yeah, betcha.
I think we're all in agreement staff-wise, it's not gonna be, it's gonna be zero tolerance as far as, oh, well, I drove 2 hours, I drove, out there, it's on social media. Look at the people following the rules, to make sure.
And Ron is trying to work it out with the local pharmacy that they'll be ready to do rapid tests. So if somebody does turn up, we can say, here's your address, you can go, you'll be back here in an hour. So I think we've covered as many bases.
Is there any kind of pre-registration or anything?
So we have the ability to do that, but we did not do it specifically for Dragon because of, really hard to do refunds, actually, it's really complicated.
Yeah, I'm just thinking along the lines of, okay, if you agree to this, you agree that, you gotta be X, Y, Z. So there's a pre-screening that they can't walk up at the 11th hour and say, I didn't know. Yeah. Kind of a thing. That's just why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, I think it could be a good thing for the future, especially if we have it, on revenue stuff.
Even if it's, even if it's like, I know some events don't charge anything, but you still need to register. Have the line where you can say, oh, we're trying to gauge our numbers, make sure we have everything we need for you when you show up, kind of a way.
Yeah, right. As far as lectures, programs, and other special events that we talked about, breaks and grains, as far as Thomas Jefferson Awards, we rotated different locations. So 1 year to Richmond, 1 year to Martinsville, and then another site somewhere else in Virginia. So based on the cancellations from COVID and all the delays, the plan is at this point to hold it in Martinsville in the spring. There was talk of holding it in Richmond, but the foundation board felt like it might be too soon with all the uncertainty. Now might be a good time to sort of restart the plan. Part of the benefit to having it in Richmond was all the outreach to the legislators, but that doesn't mean we can't do that. Right? I mean, we don't need the Jefferson Awards necessarily to do that, so we can still do that outreach. So normally that's March. Again, we'll get it with grades and grains.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of good press, particularly in our archaeology program. We of course hired the new team during pandemic, but they've started up the Cultural Heritage Monitoring Lab, and that's the collaboration between us, Smithsonian, and the Department of Defense. So as I was telling the Strategic Planning Committee, this is the lab where they're. I think you're all pretty familiar, so I'll just glance over it. But this is the opportunity for us to use satellite data and geospatial data to assist Department of Defense with analysis of cultural heritage sites around the world that are at risk due to either armed conflict or natural disaster. So we just did work in Haiti, identifying areas of cultural heritage that were at risk due to the earthquakes that occurred there, and that's already had some very positive. They were able to prioritize where stewardship operations were to be directed. They also worked in Honduras, analyzing cultural heritage sites that were at risk from recent hurricanes. So they were working and communicating directly with the Honduran military. And then the last place that we're not going to get a lot of press on for obvious reasons, I still don't even know the details, but there is a site that Hayden was monitoring in Afghanistan where there is an ancient Greek burial And it's known, but it was never excavated from the standpoint of those artifacts being taken out. It was known, and the artifacts were left in the ground. Well, Hayden documented the Taliban digging a trench through the site, and what they're doing is they're looting it. So he is basically documenting that whole process and turning that over to UNESCO, who are setting up points to try to intercept what they can when they're bringing out a country. Because from what we've learned is that the Taliban are funding a lot of their operations not from the poppy seed and opium. They are, but not as much as they are with the black market and antiquities. So he provides that analytical component to those interdiction operations. So it's been good press. You know, there's things he does that he can't talk about, but it's been cool. So that's just kind of new in the wheelhouse, and we are hiring a new curator of herpetology. We've never had one. There may have been one when the museum first opened. We had one for about 6 minutes or something, but that person did not stick around apparently. So this will be new because, of course, Martinsville, fortunately, is right at the edge of what you might consider a biodiversity hotspot for reptiles and amphibians in the world, right? So going from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park up through Shenandoah National Park in particular. So I think we're pretty well set to have some good press on current and upcoming projects.
Now you can have Harry Potter questions.
Yes, believe it or not, we talked about it with now. Yep. And if we have our chops down with the Dragon Festival, I mean, it's just kind of a little tweak to the delivery of the program. You know, why not? So don't do a Dragon Festival. And this might be new to you. Dragon Festival came about because of the Dragon research team at Roanoke College, which includes biologists, paleontologists, literary scholars, people who study mythology, et cetera, and so on. So it's a multidisciplinary team, and they began to look at the origins of dragon lore, and they found that in an analysis, it really doesn't prove anything, but it's really intriguing that the independent origins of dragon lore around Earth actually occurred in area where there's known fossil deposits of what are called lycopods, which are these big trees. But when you look at the fossil, and they can come in very big slabs, it looks scaly, and it is. These big scaly trees that exist today as little tiny things called club mosses. And so back in the Devonian period, they grew 40, 50 feet high. So when the trunk's preserved, it looks like we're a big dragony looking thing laid down, and the root ends have these three kind of things that look like claws. And the spores that they get preserved, they look like eyeballs, right? And so they said, do you think people misinterpreted what these fossils, because people throughout history misinterpreted fossils left and right. So is this maybe where dragon lore came from? So it's an intriguing multidisciplinary training mechanism for the students there, but then translating it into this festival, we bring it back to the fossils. And then, so everything on the outside is fun, everything on the inside is science and art and fun. But yeah, so it's good science. And if you talk to Dr. Evans from the board, he was a skeptic, and I understand, but he actually came to the last Dragon Fest and stood at the front and talked to people as they came in. And he was a convert. He was like, there are so many people here who would never otherwise come to a natural history.
Is that an evolutionary win if you guys are being afforded moss? Like, is that a success?
Well, I call it success because you've got a lineage that long. Look at Homo sapiens, 200,000 years.
Come on.
Devonian was 360 million years ago. These things probably came about 380-ish.
Well, maybe, and I'm
Going to
Yeah.
say things that, birds.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big,
Yeah.
Yep.
leave their ancestry. No, I laughed. I did not know that. That was interesting about dragons, but I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Me and my grandmother was from Scotland. I used to go visit. The, national animal of Scotland is the unicorn.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I mean, so it's like, sure, why not?
The starter animal.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can't take care of a dragon or a unicorn, you better not buy a dog. Okay. The last thing here on this part of the list is government relations. Just as a heads up, it's been modified in the last year, but what we normally did was to hold we usually have a board meeting in February, but that said, we also keep it flexible to line up with the General Assembly session. And we've done very well by bringing literature, and we even customized leave behinds for each office as best we can, especially if we're doing projects within somebody's district. And we leave that behind, try to schedule meetings ahead of time and so
And you
forth.
have board and foundation members go on those, good.
Yeah, so we schedule the board meeting and then do the General Assembly blitz. We've had no-cost leave behinds like Chesapeake fossils, which we can find by the gazillion. They're financially they're not worth anything. What did we leave last time? Fairy stones, yes. So those are dime a dozen. So we need to start, as staff, we need to think of, assuming everything is cool and we get to go into the General Assembly.
Have they finished their new building, or are they still?
No. We'll be going, if we go this year, it'll be the Pocahontas building.
It looks better though. I mean, if they're making lots of art.
And, you know, the other kind of specifics legislatively, you know, we maintain the local legislators as best we can. They don't have a huge interest in us. Yeah.
Sometimes that can be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. And also with the legislators, in particular Delegate Foley and Senator Hanger, as it pertains to the Waynesboro branch project. I'll get to here shortly. We move on to strategic plans. Sure. Okay, I'm going to actually change the order of elements here. First of all, I want Jonathan to start with the last part, the ESCO, or the Energy Savings Company project. So can you tell us where we stand with that?
Sure. So they completed, covered it a little bit earlier, but in an earlier meeting, but we can pass it here. They completed the investment grade audit. So that's done, and then they've put together our project based on savings. So the investment grade audit looks at all aspects of the building and then tells us and then where the money should be spent to get the most bang for the buck. So it's a dollar for dollar exchange. We are inking a deal for $1.5 million to pay back over 15 years with savings roughly around $114,000 yearly in utilities. So the project includes solar and includes HVAC retrofitting, humidification systems, upgrades, and LED lighting, as well as it's 4 EV chargers, but you'll see 2 stands with a charger on either side. So we're eventually our fleet of vehicles will be electric. So we're working ahead there to put ourselves in the best position possible to take those on, as well as be, you know, a leader in the community. I think we're the only EV charger other than the dealerships. And I think they have them just for show because, you know, it's like Chevy Volt. They're trying to sell it locally. So we'll be the only pay per charge in the area.
Do you already have a spot picked out for where those are going to go in? Corner or something like that?
To the left of the building.
Okay.
So our architectural review board has to review it. So they'll probably tell us where to put them.
When you say to the left, facing the building or facing away from the building?
Over
From Starling, if I'm standing on Starling, where do I see them?
the left.
Okay.
It's like toward the Y.
Yeah.
Yeah. So toward the YMCA.
I was going to say, in the Fed building, in our parking, expensive for employees, but they took 5 of the better parking spots. And, well, they're not up front, but they were not premium, but they were better. Parking spaces, and they're the EV charging spots in our parking back. So just, as I said, I read that as a little bit of management encouraging employees to maybe start thinking about buying electric vehicles. You get better parking.
We did it on purpose in this building. This building had over a week to sell electricity. But the EV chargers are all the best parking areas.
So just think about, don't put them in East Podunk passes.
Well, I believe there was a bit of consideration to running the,
New line.
and we're doing it as inexpensively as possible to maximize the cost savings.
I completely agree with what you say, but I also think having them visible to people just driving by as advertising isn't a bad thing either. I'm not sure people will see them driving by.
We'd have, I mean, the landscaping as it was designed in 2007 is awful, right? It is not set up so that you can really see much from Starling Avenue, because their landscape design, amongst many other botched ideas, was they put evergreen shrubs off front, so when you drive by, you see the top of the building, except when you're right by the ingress and egress spots. So I like the idea, and we should think about that.
They're
in some
like boxes
capacity.
or something, I have spots, they can be cut down. I mean, shrubs can be shortened.
Or,
I don't know what that's read.
Yeah.
I was going to say, or.
Yeah. Well,
That's what I mean, they can be sheer, they can be short.
Well, no, I meant completely.
Oh.
yeah, we can eliminate it.
Chainsaw action.
We,
I'm hearing a landscaping special project.
There you go.
sitting here.
I think the general consensus amongst the staff when we had this discussion was that we can't just eliminate it, we have to eliminate and do something with, because we just think it would look really bad. You know?
Even we just say, I'm sure.
They're about waist high now. But see, if you're on the road and you're in a sedan and you're looking right as you're driving by, there's a slight
You're right there.
increase in, yeah.
Does the lot close ever? I mean,
No.
so people would have access to it 24/7?
Yeah, just during, the only time we've ever closed off is during Dragon Festival.
People don't see them, they won't know.
I'm sure that's something in the city, maybe they already know, but that's certainly something we would want to know.
City hates us.
Oh,
Yeah, because we buy our electricity from them, and now we're gonna buy less. So,
That's a good point.
Every utility may get about the CR, because CR actually has.
I think so. A little bit to explain.
yeah, so, I understand the idea of putting it in that corner, because that is gonna be the shortest run for short.
And then they're gonna do the HVAC too, so they're just gonna
Yeah.
use that to reduce the labor cost.
Right. So I'm just trying to think of how to, because it's also a pretty far distance, even if we had no shrubs and more effective landscaping, it's a pretty good distance, so I don't know about just putting them up and people understanding what they are. That's why I'm thinking, that's why I was looking at Ryan, if we augment the Virginia Museum of Natural History Mason sign out front by the road, if we had something that.
How tall is the charger gonna be? Are they car tall, or are they gonna be, some chargers are actually much taller, so maybe it wouldn't,
I haven't seen them.
That's the boxes for the station probably.
because it's not tall.
Is there a universal symbol for like charging, similar to, I was just thinking if there was a symbol that would be recognizable, it would be.
Yeah, sort of like when you're driving, you see the DMV sign pointers.
Yeah.
They're universal. Yeah.
I think that, you see it, what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
We can add, make sure that we have whatever universal symbol.
So, with a lot of the electric vehicle cars, my understanding, part of their GPS system that's built in is it will find charging stations for you.
Who do you inform, or how do you inform?
Tesla.
Really?
Well, but there's got to be,
True, I don't know how they know.
there's got to be a universal.
Well, Siemens should know.
Yeah.
We'll talk to them.
You should get them on the map, to bring them visitors, etc.
I think
While
so.
charging your car, come on in.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Plus to go, we built a charge a normal size vehicle in about an hour and a half. To the museum, charging cars.
And knowing that things are still fluid right now, because we have not had any work begin on property, but what's the approximate timeline?
Oh, at the 30 days before we start, and then roughly 90 to 100 days.
Of actual work, you get 90% of the work done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And there's obviously there might be a delay due to supply chain, but pretty much,
So we're looking at spring
yeah,
essentially.
November 1st, we're on the Art and Architectural Review Board docket. So,
Okay, good. And related to that, to smooth things along, the Genus Adams Education Pavilion is out to bid for contractors. So once they get started, they'll get rolling about 30 days after we sign the contract with them. So we're loosely planning some kind of spring opening. I'm hoping we can effectively kind of double dip. One, have a grand opening of the pavilion and the exhibits that are going to go in there, and then double up with the grapes and grains. It'll be nice to have a good outdoor space for that. The Douglas Avenue rehab, we're just waiting on materials. They should be coming in. We're getting some extra heavy-duty rubber membrane to ensure that the building's up to code. But the contractor's rating on that, once it's in, it shouldn't be a long project at all.
When
So-
do they, taking this probably that's a supply chain issue, when are they expected to come in?
January?
Sitting on the January?
Yeah.
we were at the earliest.
It ships from California.
Or it's sitting on the dock? Well,
Can we
by
get
the way,
rubber membrane from it?
Yeah.
just so you all know, since this is part of my job, yeah, on the West Coast, particularly Long Beach, the ships are anchored off. It's because basically, won't get into it, but they can't unload. On the East Coast, Charleston, Baltimore, there is no backlog. They're all unloading in a timely manner. The problem is, even if they get them to the inland port, like at Greer or up in Norton, by train, there are no trucks to pick them up. So all these containers are sitting on the dock like in Baltimore, and there's no trucks to pick them up.
Very weird,
If you want to like Google Earth like the Port of Baltimore, and look at the number of containers sitting there waiting for a truck to pick them up. It's so, I mean, I've had people say, yeah, my good is sitting, my raw materials I need for manufacturing are sitting on the dock in Savannah, and have been for the last 2.5 months, waiting for a truck to then deliver it to us.
Oh, I can tell you where they are, right? You know, they know.
They know.
Container
They're like,
number.
I can even see the
Yep,
container.
I go, I can see it, right there.
It's right there.
Yep.
But there's no trucks to pick it up.
No chassis.
What's the cause of it, the lack of?
Well, the best thing I can say was pre-pandemic, we knew we had a problem with aging workforce in truck drivers, young people, you know, like, I got out of school and I want to be a truck driver. Not happening. So, and then with the pandemic, a lot of them retired. So there's just plain not enough truck drivers. And then there's also, just like with cars, you're missing essential parts to get new trucks and trailers. And so the manufacturers can't get those out the door. Even if we have enough truck drivers, we don't have enough new trucks rolling off the line.
It sounds like a problem that's going to make somebody a lot of money at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question. All right, one last bit I want to cover for the sake of Finance Committee, especially since this is a joint meeting of the foundation and the board. So VMNH Waynesboro, all is going well. We've been allotted just north of $1.1 million for our detailed planning. We've contracted, or in the process of contracting, with James Madison University. They're going to be our project manager. They're pennies on the dollar, you know, and they, of course, build lots of buildings, so they know the ins and outs and will help navigate. We didn't either. Yeah. It was Tom Benzing. Obviously, he's biased because he has the connection, but with the close proximity, and they're offering $75 an hour and capping it at 200,000. I mean, so that's going to leave us plenty of money to do the actual detail planning. So we're working through the RFP process right now. The Waynesboro Advocacy Committee will review those proposals and will bring firms in for interview. We know that the one of the strongest, most heavily weighted categories of the ranking of firms will be, have you been there, done that in Virginia? You know, we want a firm that knows the ins and outs of the Commonwealth. So we're working our way through that. And so I will just take this moment to jointly inform both the Board of Trustees and the VMNH Foundation Board of Directors that if memory serves, it was all the way back in 2019 that the foundation had voted to put together a branch campus ad hoc committee that would be populated by people regional to that project, and also then to be chaired by or co-chaired by 2 VMNH Foundation board members. So as a staffer, I will say this would be a good time for both the board and the foundation to put heads together. We can feed you all a draft approximate timeline as to where we get together, but we need to start thinking about a capital campaign. The state is calculated at this point that with escalation and an approximate 2023 date of groundbreaking, that they'll kick in $18.7 million. The city is still willing to kick in $1 million towards the project. Jonathan's already started the process of transferring the land to the state. And then the VMNH Foundation is committed to $2 million in philanthropy. We've already made we've had people walk up and, I mean, one guy handed us a check for $25,000. It's like, I just want to be involved. And, you know, it's like, okay, great, let's keep you involved. And then Len Poulin got us in front of DASCOM in Verona, which is not far from Waynesboro. And these guys, one thing that they're really moving in heavily right now is vertical indoor agriculture. And they've always been, for a long time, been involved in LED lighting systems, customized LED lighting systems, and they've offered to do the LED lighting for the building. So we're off between in-kind and cash. We're already off to a good start, but we are going to have to start probably sometime mid to late 2022 to have a capital campaign plan in place to begin to lay over the finishing touches on the detail planning. So the detail planning will have updated drawings, and not just updated drawings, but much more detailed than what came out of the pre-planning process.
And is there some naming opportunities?
Many, yes. Well, we're already identifying those in general because we want to incorporate those into, obviously, these are features we want to incorporate into the new museum, ranging from things like classroom spaces and laboratory spaces. We want to, I know you haven't seen the building yet, but we have a series of cases we call column cases, which are an exhibit feature within our building. They house exhibits of certain proportions that we make in-house. So we want to mimic that in Waynesboro so we can have rotational exhibits to keep things fresh. Each one of those is a small naming opportunity, maybe like $10,000 or something. And then we're actually working with a fella out of Charlottesville who has a prospect who may want to name the building. So, yeah.
I was going to say, I've done this before for a building. Yeah, it's kind of like a range, you know, if you're willing to give $10 million and have your name on it, it's almost like a schedule.
Yes. Where
you can go to a big donor.
Yep.
Check the boxes that you would like.
Ryan was involved with that with the Starling Avenue building in the mid-2000s.
And I was just shocked. I thought that somebody really going to give that amount of money to have a name on a conference room? The answer was yes.
Yeah, I think
So think big.
Yeah.
I mean, I was skeptical and I was absolutely proven wrong.
And just FYI, before we even brought this to the board, me and some of the staff, we were doing some of our homework, and we got a company to do a feasibility study for us, and then we raised some money to do a master plan. This was all outside of state. We raised the money and just to try to get the proof of concept moving forward, and I guess it did. But we then raised a few more dollars, and we had company out of Harrisonburg do a capital campaign study. And just FYI, the conclusion to that study was that we should anticipate having the capacity to raise about $9 million out of the Waynesboro area. I don't believe it for a second.
I think statewide, if you probably, we'll just have to see what the budget comes up with, but yeah, probably Waynesboro alone, that's probably a big lift, but
Yes.
statewide, you probably could look at something bigger, particularly with some, I call it top-heavy gifts.
Yeah, we'll use certainly develop a donor pyramid to get access to people with that kind of capacity. We're also, we've talked about this for a while now, but, we're talking about connections to the via watersheds, the connections of this site that we'll be building on to things like the Shenandoah River, the James River, the Potomac River. So we have some connections there that we're working to try to connect people who might not be just, 30 miles away, but maybe 100 miles away, but still understand the importance of the environmental education aspect of the project.
Yeah, like a friend of mine here in Richmond that runs the James River Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
In school in Charlottesville, I seem to remember there being a small museum facility there. Is that ringing any bells?
That was us.
Okay, that's what I
Right.
thought. Do you have any connections from there based on that?
That was borrowed space from the university. So that had a very small budget from kind of the home base. Ryan, did you ever see it?
Yeah, it was about the time I started closed.
Yeah.
The university, museums don't pay tuition, so,
That's true.
yeah. So universities there are exceptions, but universities generally don't like collections. Plenty of exceptions, actually, but it's very nice university-based museums.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, we're the fellow who was trying to get us, trying to get a friend that has developed interest in the project, so we've been continuously providing him information. He's out of Charlottesville, and Charlottesville connection. We have a collections donor who just, long story, not pertinent to this particular committee, but provided us with a collection. He's a neurosurgeon out of Charlottesville, and it was his father's connection. Got an emotional connection to that collection. I think we have to pull from all these areas.
I'm sure the foundation knows way more about that stuff.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, thinking about watersheds, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, maybe getting them.
Excellent. So we're in good shape, but we need to make sure that we have communication coming from the Board of Trustees. They've already made the request to raise $2 million. I just think a timeline would be the next logical step. So I'll work on that and make sure the board has that. And Roberto, I think that's all I have for, well, there's two number 4s on my agenda. The bulleting thing didn't work out well for me. Yes, so yeah, we do have a couple number 5 there. So I'm done with my.
5 out of 3 people have problems with math.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I apologize, I don't remember the end time. Was 3 hours?
3 o'clock, yeah.
Okay. I want to be respectful of folks' time. I'll be better at the next meeting. Likewise,
We started late.
in terms of planning, I kind of like to send the draft agenda out first in case anybody has any hot buttons, but please feel free to, regardless of when the time is, if there's anything we need to get on here that you want specific drilling down about, please let us know. The other aspect is I request you to brainstorm a little bit, knowing the little bit of marketing budget that we have and the opportunities within social media and literally getting our friends and family and 24-hour online kids involved in sharing and liking and spreading, helping spread the word. Touching on a little bit that we said on the strategic planning session, What does the Dragon Festival look like 5 years from now? Or our chain of events? I mean, if this is something that is really resonating, you know, and we're trying to capture an audience. This is playing 3D video games all day long. To your point before about extra fancy displays and whatnot, what's that, or what does that need to look like for us 5-7 years down the line that we need to start literally asking and budgeting for now? I'd like to plant all those seeds. I don't know if either of our other team members have any final thoughts along the way on either the present or the future that we can start injecting into our peer board members as we head into other meetings.
A lot already.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And just to put the context in the strategic planning session right before this, we see a lot of concrete stuff going on. The purpose was to, you know, have the board as we head into a potential planning session in 2022, you know, go up a level higher and say, okay, strategically, what are the things that we need to think about as opposed to, you know, turning dirt and putting pile drives and all this kind of stuff in there that staff, you know, they got that handled. And if our role is, what is our role as strategic planners? What can we do to help them as we head down the line and bring our foundation friends in to help us so we have the money to do?
Want to give Earl a chance to say anything?
Yes, of course.
Hey, Earl, are you still there?
I'm here, Joe. Yep.
Do you have anything
No,
you'd like to add?
Yes,
Do you have
I'd
anything
like to thank, yes, I'd just like to say thanks for the opportunity to attend this today. We look forward to working with the Board of Trustees on all these projects. Some heavy lifts coming up for sure, but we're excited about the future. So thank you.
Yeah, Earl, I'd just like to say, I personally, you know, being new and learning how this is, I'll probably ask a lot of stupid questions, but I really look forward to working in lockstep with you folks and your team on how we execute. I mean, staff, board, or either board, I mean, we all have one end goal in mind. So looking forward to holding hands and walking down the aisle there.
Absolutely. We are too. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Earl. We very much appreciate your time. And Zach, thank you for handling the technology today. It worked well.
Very good.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Take care.
thanks, Earl. Okay, we'll talk soon.